My friend, let me ask you a very direct question. If I told you that you could earn $300 million during your lifetime and still end up bankrupt, completely broke with $30 million in debt, would you believe me? Seems impossible, right? It seems like someone would have to be absolutely irresponsible to achieve that feat, but that happened to Mike Tyson, one of the greatest boxers of all time, a man who had enough money to support generations of his family. And yet, he lost everything. Now, before you think this is just another crazy celebrity story that has nothing to do with you, I want you to stop and reflect on something. The same dynamic that destroyed Mike Tyson's financial life is happening in your life right now, just on a smaller scale. You may not be dealing with millions, maybe you're dealing with thousands or even hundreds, but the essence of the problem is exactly the same. And if you don't understand this today, you're going to spend the rest of your life chasing money without ever really reaching it. The truth is that most people never learned what money really means. They spent years in school studying math, history, science, but nobody ever sat down with them and explained how money really works. Nobody taught that there's a gigantic difference between making money and keeping money. Nobody said that you could be earning 6 figures a year and still live paycheck to paycheck, always one step behind the bills. And worst of all, my friend, is that there's a whole system working against you, pushing you to consume more, spend more, impress more people. Here's what nobody tells you. Getting rich isn't about making a lot of money. It's about understanding the relationship between what comes into your life and what goes out. It's about mastering your impulses while everyone around you is losing control. It's about creating real value for the world instead of just chasing the next paycheck. And perhaps most importantly, it's about accepting a hard truth that most people don't want to hear. Life isn't fair. Some of us were born with enormous advantages, others lost in the birth lottery. You may have started far behind in the race. You may need to work twice, 3 times as hard to get where others got without even trying. And this reality may seem brutal, may even seem unfair, because it is unfair. So what do you do with this information? Do you complain? Do you give up? Do you use it as an excuse not to act? Or do you accept reality as it is and decide that you're going to do something about it anyway? Because my friend, complaining isn't going to change your bank account. Being resentful of those who have more isn't going to put money in your pocket. The only thing that will change your life is action. Action based on real knowledge about how money works. And that's exactly what you're going to learn in the next few minutes. Not empty theory. Not promises of getting rich quick. Just the naked truth about what separates those who build wealth from those who spend their entire lives chasing it without ever reaching it. In the next few minutes, you're going to understand why money isn't what you think it is. You're going to discover the trap that's keeping you stuck in an endless race. You're going to learn how to take control of your consumption in a way that actually works. And perhaps most importantly, you're going to see how to create real value for the world around you, value that transforms into real money. This isn't going to be easy to hear. Some of these truths are going to make you uncomfortable. But if you stay with me until the end, if you really pay attention to what I'm about to share, you're going to leave here with a completely new map for your financial life. So take a deep breath, my friend, and let's dive into this together. Mike Tyson earned over $300 million during his boxing career. Let that sink in for a moment. $300 million. And yet, in 2003, he declared bankruptcy with $30 million in debt. Now, you might think this is just another celebrity story about someone who lost everything, something distant from your reality. But the truth is that this same dynamic is happening in the lives of millions of ordinary people every day, just on a different scale. The question isn't how much money comes into your life, my friend, but rather what you really understand about what that money represents. Think with me for a second. When you look at money, what do you see? Just numbers in a bank account? Colorful papers? Or maybe a way to get what you want? Most people never stop to reflect on this question, and that's exactly where the danger lies. Money isn't just a piece of paper or digits on a screen. Money is something much deeper, something that connects your effort to the world around you. When you truly understand this, when this idea finally clicks in your mind, your relationship with every dollar that passes through your hands changes completely. Let's clarify something important here. Money is simply an expression of value. When you buy something on Amazon, you're not just exchanging money for a product. You're telling the market that that item has a value equivalent to the money you're handing over. When you work at a job and receive your salary, your employer is recognizing that your time, your skills, and your energy have a specific value. This exchange happens billions of times every day around the world. But how many people really stop to understand what's happening in this process? Very few. Now, here's where things get interesting. Many people carry a distorted view of money. You've heard that old phrase, right? Money is the root of all evil. We grew up hearing stories about rich people who are greedy, selfish, who stepped on other people to get where they are. We look at someone with a lot of money and immediately make judgments. They got lucky. They stole from someone. They did something wrong. This narrative is so ingrained in our culture that most people don't even realize they're thinking this way. And as long as you continue seeing money as something morally corrupt, you'll continue pushing it away from your life. The truth that nobody wants to admit is this. Money has no morals. Money is neither good nor bad. Money is neutral. What defines whether something is good or bad are the choices you make with it. A criminal can use money to finance illegal activities, while a philanthropist uses the same money to build hospitals and schools. The money didn't change, only the intentions of the people who use it. When you finally understand that money is just a tool, an expression of value that you created in the world, you free your mind from all those limiting beliefs that were preventing you from prospering. So when you start to see money as value, something fascinating happens. You stop asking yourself how to get more money and start asking yourself how to create more value. You stop envying people who have money and start studying the value they brought to the market. That is, those who actually created value and didn't just inherit fortunes from their parents. Now that you understand that money is value, we need to talk about something that most people prefer to ignore. Money will come into your life and it will leave. That's an immutable law, my friend. The question isn't whether money will leave, but rather how and why it's leaving. There's a constant dance happening in your financial life, a relationship between what comes in and what goes out, between what you produce and what you consume. And for most people, this dance is completely out of rhythm, creating a life of financial stress that seems to have no end. Think about all the times money has come into your life until today. Your salary, that bonus you received, may be a cash gift from a relative. Now think about everything that left. The rent, the electricity bill, that streaming service you watch once a month but keep paying for, the new car you financed, the clothes, the restaurants, the trips. Do this math mentally for a second. Of all the money that has passed through your hands throughout your life, how much do you still have today? How much is invested in something that will grow over time? If the answer scares you, you're not alone in this. There's a study that shows something absolutely shocking. 78% of American workers live paycheck to paycheck. This means that most people are just one paycheck away from total financial collapse. But here's the part that will really surprise you. 10% of people who earn over $100,000 a year also live paycheck to paycheck. Let that sink in. These people are earning well above average, well above the basic cost of living, and yet they manage to spend every cent that comes in. The problem isn't how much you earn, it's how much you spend. This dynamic creates something we call the rat race. And no, this has nothing to do with working 9 to 5, as some gurus out there like to preach. The real rat race is living on a financial tightrope, where you're constantly chasing the next paycheck to pay last month's bills. It's that feeling that no matter how much you earn, the money simply disappears. You work hard, receive your payment, and before you know it, it's already gone. And then you go back to work, waiting for the next paycheck, to repeat the whole cycle again. What makes this even more dangerous is that the more responsibilities you have, the more fragile this situation becomes. Imagine losing your job suddenly. Imagine an unexpected health accident that leaves you unable to work for a few months. Imagine any emergency you didn't plan for. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, any of these situations can throw your financial life into absolute chaos. And worst of all is the mental weight this carries. Your job stops being a choice and becomes a prison. You can't leave, you can't risk, you can't do anything but keep running on this infinite wheel. Here's the ironic part of all this. Most people who are trapped in this race believe the solution is to make more money. They think that if they got that raise, that promotion, that new job that pays better, they'd finally be able to breathe. But the story of Mike Tyson, and countless other celebrities who went broke, shows us something different. It doesn't matter how much money you make if you have a consumption problem. You can earn 300,000 or 300 million. If you spend it all, the result is always the same. And that's exactly why we need to look with brutal honesty at the other side of this equation, the one that really makes the difference. The first thing you need to do, my friend, is face the truth about your own consumption habits. And I know this isn't easy. In fact, there's even a term in behavioral finance to describe what you feel when you think about looking at your bank account after a night of spending more than you should. They call it the ostrich effect, that tendency we have to stick our heads in the sand and avoid negative financial information. You know exactly what I'm talking about. That moment when you'd rather not know how much you spent because the truth might hurt too much. But here's the problem with this reality avoidance strategy. It never works in the long term. The path out of this trap starts with something very simple, almost too obvious. You need to write down every cent that leaves your account. Housing, transportation, food, basic bills, entertainment, everything. For an entire month, you're going to document absolutely everything you consume. Does it seem boring? Maybe. Does it seem laborious? Definitely. But this is the only way to bring real awareness about who you are as a consumer. Most people live on autopilot, spending without thinking, buying without questioning. They genuinely have no idea where the money is going. And you can't fix a problem you don't even know exists. When you finally have this clarity, when you look at the numbers and see exactly how much you spend in each category of your life, then you can start creating a real budget. And budgeting isn't about restriction, it's not about living miserably. Budgeting is about control. It's about you consciously deciding how much you're going to spend in each area of your life every month and then having the discipline to follow those decisions. You look at your entertainment and decide how much makes sense to spend there. You look at food and see where you can optimize without sacrificing quality of life. You look at each category and ask, is this aligned with my long-term goals? Here's where many people stumble. They start to see patterns in their own spending that reveal uncomfortable truths about who they are. Maybe you discover you spend $400 a month on clothes you wear once or twice. Maybe you realize you're paying for 3 different streaming services when you only watch one. Maybe you see that car you financed is consuming an absurd percentage of your monthly income. These discoveries can be harsh, but they're absolutely necessary. Because you're not competing with anyone else here, you're just trying to live below your means so you have room to breathe financially. Living below your means means creating a lifestyle that leaves room for the future. It means that after paying all your bills and expenses, you still have money left over to save and invest. And before you start investing in anything, the most common practice in personal finance is to build an emergency fund. This fund should cover 3 to 6 months of your expenses. Imagine having that financial cushion. Imagine the peace of mind of knowing that if something goes wrong, you have time to reorganize without panicking. This fund isn't for you to feel rich, it's for you to feel secure. Now, I need to be honest with you about why this is so difficult. It's not just lack of discipline or laziness. Our own brain is working against us. There's something called hyperbolic discounting, which is our tendency to value immediate rewards much more than future rewards. That's why you choose to buy those new sneakers today instead of saving that money to invest in the future. There's also social proof, our need to think and act like the people around us. If all your friends are buying new cars, traveling to expensive places, wearing designer clothes, you feel pressure to do the same. There's even an expression for this: keeping up with the Joneses. And this game never ends, because there will always be someone with something more expensive, newer, more impressive. Now let's talk about the side of the equation that everyone loves to discuss, but few truly understand. Making money, producing value, increasing your income. And look, I completely understand why personal finance channels focus so much on reducing expenses and living frugally. It's because this strategy works for most people. It's easier to control what you spend than to increase what you earn, especially when you're talking to a giant audience with different levels of skill and opportunity. Reducing expenses is democratic. Anyone can do it. Increasing income? Well, that requires a bit more strategy. Think with me about the concept of production versus consumption. Most people will spend their entire lives producing value through a traditional job. They exchange their hours, their skills, and their energy for a fixed salary. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, my friend. Many people love their jobs, are perfectly satisfied with their careers, have other passions outside of work. The problem isn't the job itself, it's when you stop thinking about other ways to produce value. It's when you accept that monthly salary as the absolute ceiling of your ability to generate income. It's when you never ask yourself, how could I create value in a way that reaches more people? The answer to that question usually involves some form of entrepreneurship or content creation at scale. You might be thinking you need to create a YouTube channel or become an influencer, and that's definitely not it. Producing value at scale can mean developing an app that solves a specific problem for thousands of users. It could be creating an online course that teaches a valuable skill. It could be building a fitness brand like Ben Francis did with Gymshark, using community and branding brilliantly. It could be writing a book, creating a podcast, developing software, offering specialized consulting. The internet has opened doors that simply didn't exist 20 years ago. You have tools available today that allow you to reach the entire world from your room. But here's the part that separates those who dream from those who execute. You'll only discover if the market wants what you're producing after you put your work out there. You can plan, study, research as much as you want, but at the end of the day, the market is what decides whether what you created has value or not. And this requires courage, my friend. It requires you to risk your time, your energy, maybe even some money, on something that might not work out. Most people never reach this point because the fear of failure is greater than the desire for success. They prefer to stay in the safety of the monthly salary, complaining that they never have opportunities, when in reality they never created their own opportunities. And look, after understanding these two sides of the coin, consumption and production, you finally have the complete map to transform your financial life once and for all. So my friend, we've reached the end of this journey together. And now comes the most important part of all. The knowledge you just acquired here is worth absolutely nothing if you don't do anything with it. You can watch this entire video, agree with everything I said, feel that momentary motivation, and tomorrow wake up and continue living exactly the same way. Or you can choose something different. You can choose to act. So let me ask you some very direct questions. Questions that only you can answer honestly. When was the last time you really looked at where your money is going? When was the last time you sat down, grabbed paper and pen, and mapped every cent that leaves your account every month? Are you living below your means, or are you spending every dollar that comes in? Do you have an emergency fund that gives you security, or are you one paycheck away from financial collapse? And perhaps the most important question of all, what value are you creating for the world that justifies the financial life you want to have? These questions aren't meant to make you feel bad, my friend. They're meant to wake you up. Because the truth is that you have much greater potential than you're showing right now. We all do. It doesn't matter how many mistakes you've made in the past. It doesn't matter how many times you've tried and failed. It doesn't matter what your current situation is. What matters is what you decide to do from now on. And this decision needs to come accompanied by real action, not just good intentions. I want you to do this now. In the next 7 days, you're going to document absolutely everything you spend. Every coffee, every app, every impulse purchase, everything. At the end of those 7 days, you're going to look at that list and ask yourself, are these expenses aligned with the life I want to build? And then you're going to create a real budget, not that imaginary budget you make in your head and never follow. A real budget with real numbers based on your current reality. And while you're doing this, I want you to start thinking about how you can increase the value you bring to the world. What are your skills? What problems can you solve better than most people? How can you take those skills and reach more people with them? I'm not saying you need to quit your job tomorrow and become an entrepreneur. I'm saying you need to start thinking like someone who creates value, not just someone who trades hours for money. Real change begins when you stop waiting for someone to come save you. Nobody's coming, my friend. There's no magic guru, no secret course, no hidden shortcut. There's only you, your choices, and your willingness to do the hard work that most people aren't willing to do. And yes, it's going to be difficult, especially if you started behind in the race, especially if you lost in the birth lottery. But difficult doesn't mean impossible. If this video made sense to you, if you felt that finally someone is speaking the truth about money without beating around the bush, then I need you to do one thing. Subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications, because this is just the beginning of the conversation. There's much more knowledge about wealth building, personal finance, and development that I want to share with you. And each video you watch will add one more piece to the puzzle of your financial transformation. By the way, after watching this video, take a look at the other content on the channel. Explore the videos about investments, about mindset, about how to create multiple income streams. The more you dive into these concepts, the more you expand your capacity for reflection on these topics, the more prepared you'll be to really change your life. Knowledge without application is just entertainment. So consume this content, but most importantly, apply it.